For most Americans, they hear the term Brexit and they kind of understand what the issue is about, but they probably don't think too much about it beyond that. So, what can you say about what Brexit really is and what it really means for the United Kingdom?
Well, Brexit is Britain's exit from the European Union. And finally, after several decades of membership of the EU, the British people will retake control of their borders, their trade, their own laws, their own courts. They will decide their own destiny and their own future. So Brexit is all about the principles of sovereignty, freedom, liberty, self-determination, and also about economic freedom as well. And Brexit is the biggest single event in British history since the end of World War II. It's a great event for the British people. It's also a tremendous event for the American people as well. And Brexit will strengthen the transatlantic alliance. It will greatly strengthen the US-UK special relationship. And Brexit really is a great event for the entire free world.
With the UK leaving the EU, what does this mean in practice for the coming months for the United Kingdom and the European Union?
Well, we're going to enter into what is known as the transition period, which will last until the end of 2020. During this time, the UK will still remain part of the EU single market and customs union, and the UK will still not have full control during this period of its own borders and trade. And the UK will, at the end of 2020, completely exit the customs union and single market. And this will mean that the UK will regain full entire sovereignty at the end of 2020. And Boris Johnson, the Prime Minister, has made it absolutely clear that there will be no extension to the transition period. And this is actually written into law. And so during this time as well, the UK will enter into trade negotiations with the European Union to negotiate a free trade deal with the EU. And this deal, I think, will be a vitally important deal, not only for the future of the UK, but also for the whole of Europe as well. And it is certainly our hope that the UK can get a superb deal with the European Union that will advance the principles of economic liberty, free trade and prosperity. And this will result, I think, in a more prosperous UK and also in a more prosperous European Union as well.
You talked about some of the benefits for the United Kingdom with Brexit, and you talked about the possibility of, well, not really the possibility, but soon to be the reality of new trade deals, not only between the UK and the European Union, but also with other countries around the world. Of course, a big focus about this trade debate is with the United States. What do you think some of the benefits will be for America in terms of Brexit going forward?
Well, a huge priority for the British government in the next few months will be to sign a US-UK free trade deal. After all, the United States is the world's biggest, most powerful economy. The UK is the world's fifth largest economy. A free trade deal between the US and the UK will be a tremendous force generator for jobs, prosperity and economic opportunity on both sides of the Atlantic. And there's very strong momentum in both London and Washington for a trade deal. The Trump presidency is 100% in favor of a trade deal. For Boris Johnson's government in London, a trade deal will be a huge priority. And so I think that there is a realistic chance of a trade deal being negotiated and indeed signed in 2020. And certainly I think both sides here, both London and Washington, will be pushing very hard for a highly successful trade agreement that will certainly be, I think, a great boost actually to jobs and prosperity on both sides of the Atlantic.
Of course, the Brexit vote actually happened in June of 2016, so we're well into 3.5 years since the British people voted for Brexit. There were many occasions where those who wanted to remain in the European Union tried to scuttle the whole Brexit process. Why is it important that the wishes of the 17.4 million people that voted for Brexit are honored?
Well, it's hugely important that we honor the democratic vote held in 2016, where 17.4 million Britons voted to leave the European Union. This was the biggest democratic vote in British history. And after several decades of EU membership, the British people had had enough. They wanted to retake control of their own destiny and reassert their own sovereignty. And so Brexit is all about democracy. It's about respect for the democratic principles that have made Great Britain the great nation that it is. And I think that Brexit is very much about implementing the democratic will of the British people expressed in a democratic vote here. And so Brexit certainly is a great day for the principles of democracy, freedom, and liberty.
During the campaign for Brexit, those who wanted to remain in the European Union resorted to this so-called Project Fear to paint this doom and gloom picture about Britain's life outside of the EU, unable to cope with its international relations, facing economic recession and other economic problems. But so far, none of this has materialized. What would you say to those who still paint this doom and gloom picture for the UK outside of the European Union?
Well, I think the outlook for Great Britain in the Brexit era is extremely positive, and you have not seen any of the warnings put forward during the Project Fear campaign coming to fruition at all. In fact, quite the opposite has happened. Britain is thriving and prospering as it prepares to leave the European Union. You have not seen an exodus of international banks or investment. Quite the opposite actually. You've seen a significant increase in job creation in the UK. You've seen the lowest levels of unemployment for many decades, and you've also seen record levels of foreign direct investment flowing into the United Kingdom. And so Britain does have a very optimistic future with Brexit, and also freed from the shackles of the European Union. Britain will be completely free to adopt free market principles, get rid of the huge amount of EU red tape and regulation, and advance a free trade agenda that is going to really advance the principles of economic freedom. And so I think Brexit is great for the British economy, it's great for the British people, and you will see, I think, Great Britain truly re-emerging as a world power on the global stage in the Brexit era. So the British people can look forward to, I think, a new golden era, actually, a new era of liberty, sovereignty, prosperity, and self-determination.
I could not agree more with you, Niall, and thank you for offering your insight on this very timely and important issue of Brexit.
My pleasure. Thank you very much.